Good morning. This is VirtualPBX-admin training. Just making sure everything is transmitting properly and the sound is coming through. And once I get that, we'll go ahead and get started. All right, training typically lasts about an hour and a half, sometimes a little bit longer. I'll try to, or still continuing to try to streamline this. But let's go ahead and get started. We've got our login page here, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can also get there from the virtualpbx.com website. You'll see a blue bar on the website, and there'll be a login link there, as well as a support link. And here we need your email address. That's unique to each user. We need a password and then the account name, which is typically your company name. If you didn't get your email with your password, or you simply forgot the password, down here to the bottom right, just above the sign-in bar, we have the forgot your info link. We still need your email address. And then we need either the account name, right, so company name, or a phone number on the account. And that's one of your customer-facing phone numbers, right, the number people dial to reach you. When you click on reset password, you'll get an email to that email address up here that you inputted. There'll be a link that allows you to log in and basically allows you to change your password. Once you've done so, it will log you back out and take you back to this login screen. So you basically have to re-enter the information, but mostly so it gives you a chance to click on this Remember Me box. And then you click on Sign In. Now, for best results, we do recommend that you make use of Chrome or Firefox. Some other browsers can have issues. And even then, even on like Chrome or Firefox, sometimes you have to clear your cache or cookies if things aren't displaying properly. All right, so now we see my dashboard page. Now this comes up for me because I've logged into this account several times. If you're a new signup or you're added to an existing account, the first time you log in, Dash actually takes you to your account page, which I can get to by clicking on my name up here at the top right. And here is, for instance, where you would change your own password, right? So as an admin, if I want to change my own personal password, I would go here. Now, as an admin, I also have these account level settings over here on the left. And the most common thing that's changed is the time zone. You can just use a pull down here and do a search for the appropriate time zone. Now, we're dealing with a test account here, so I don't have exactly everything you have as a customer. On your accounts, below where it says user here on the left, you'll have a billing section. So that's where you find things like your previous invoices. You can see what plan you're on. You can update your credit card as well as who your billing contact person is. All right, so once we're done here, we could close over here at the top right, and now we're on our dashboard page. Now up here at the top again, you can always click on your name to get back to that account page. For most of you, to the right of your name, you'll have a D&D toggle for do not disturb, right? So you can click on that and then you're not receiving calls, right? Calls to you are basically going to voicemail, or you simply wouldn't be offered calls if you're in a ring group. The reason I don't have a D&D toggle on my user is because I'm part of an ACD queue. So basically, once you're added as a member of an ACD queue, or actually as part of the pool of people to be in an ACD queue, the D&D toggle is removed from you because the D&D feature and ACD queues doesn't play well together. Here, we got the little help icon, right, question mark. You've got a couple options. So first up is chat with us. This opens up a chat window so you can speak to a support rep, right? Just text back and forth. It's usually in the bottom right of your browser window. Learn more opens up a new tab. This takes you right to our support pages so you can look at the various guides that we have set up for the various features as well as VoIP devices. Online store also opens a new tab. This takes you to store.virtualpbx.com where you can buy things like a VoIP phone, a router, etc. And then web phone. This one won't always show up, right? This only shows up after you've added a web phone to a user. That's when this will show up here. When it is here, it does open a new tab. It takes you to webphone.virtualpbx.net, where it allows you to make and receive calls right from your browser window. It works with Chrome or Firefox. And that's on a computer. The mobile versions of those browsers are not supported. Here we got the menu icon, right? Three horizontal lines. Sometimes our staff refers to it as the hamburger menu. This takes you to other dash features. The majority of our time will be here on the dashboard, but we will touch on these at least to some degree as we go through. And then here is your logout icon. Right here in the middle, total users. These are all the people on my account who make and receive calls. Most of our plans are based on a per user basis. So the more users you have, the higher your bill goes. Next, I have total devices. I have 27 total devices on my account. And then I have a breakdown. Now, bear in mind, Dash was designed with VoIP phones in mind. If you don't already know, VoIP stands for Voice over Internet Protocol. And all that really means is using your internet connection to make and receive calls. So first up here on this breakdown, we have soft phone. It's a software application that acts like a phone, right? So on a computer, it can be on a tablet, it could be on your smartphone, right? Still needs your internet connection, makes and receive calls. Now the soft phone, that can be the VirtualPBX soft phone application. It can be someone else's soft phone application, right? It's just all in that same bucket. Then we have the web phone. Again, that's using Chrome or Firefox. Have to be added as a device. Cell phone. Most of you probably know what a cell phone is. And then a SIP phone. This is a physical phone. That's a VoIP device, right? So VoIP, right, general term. SIP is a particular subtype of VoIP phone. There are other kinds of VoIP phones on the market. So when you're shopping, just make sure you're looking or you confirm that it's a SIP phone, SIP, like a sip of water. Down here, I have unregistered devices, and that's actually in relation to those SIP phones. So it's saying that 2 of my physical phones are not registered. That means we can't send calls to them. Now, the system doesn't know why they're not registered, right? That could be simply someone is moving a phone from one desk to another, so it's not plugged in, right? Once it gets plugged in, it'll, get reconnected, and then it'll be a registered phone, right? It could be that there's like a router problem or a network problem of some type or internet service provider problem. Right, total numbers, these are phone numbers on the account. These are your customer-facing phone numbers. Right. Most of our plans include anywhere from like 2 to 15 phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price. So in that instance, I am paying an overage on 13 of my phone numbers. To confirm how many phone numbers you have and what your overage would be, you'd want to double check with our account services team. Obviously, if you just signed up, you can go back to the pricing page and it should show you how many phone numbers are included. And towards the bottom of that page, it would show what the overage is. Right, now I have a breakdown here, first of assigned numbers and spare numbers. Right, assigned numbers, I'm using it, meaning it goes someplace, right? It could be one of my main numbers you see to the top right. It could be my fax box number, right? Someone can dial one of these numbers, an assigned number, and expect to speak to someone, leave a voicemail, join a conference, or send a fax. Spare number still counts towards my allotment, just I'm not currently using it. Could be for any number of reasons. Right, like I could have had an Easter promotion that just ended. Now I'm taking that number out of service, so that way I'm not getting calls about a promotion that's no longer running. That sort of thing. All right, next breakdown here, I have USDID, US toll-free. US toll-free is actually US Canada toll-free, right? 800 number, 888-877, all the way down to 833 currently. USDID, that just means a US local phone number, right? So if you want a phone number in, say, Anaheim, California, right, near Disneyland, you can have a phone number there. Likewise, if you wanted a phone number in Grapevine, Texas, it would just show up under USDID. You can have international phone numbers if you are interested in those. You're going to need to email our porting team. That's PORTING at virtualpbx.com. And they'll need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a number in. They'll let you know if that's it's a possibility, right? If we can actually get those numbers, and if there's additional requirements that a country has in order to get phone numbers. Over here to the top right, you have our main numbers. So these 4 phone numbers, right, they all behave the same way. They're all going to the same location. They all have the same main greeting. Down here, I have my conference number. You can have multiple conference numbers if you want, but they're all going to the same spot, right? Everybody, whether they're your staff members, your clients, your vendors, they would call the conference room number. They would then enter the conference room number and then the PIN number, and then it would join the conference. The main fax box number, you can only have the one main fax box number. This is your inbound fax number. Right? That's where you're receiving faxes on. The company directory, right here, this is downloads a CSV file. It's going to have your staff members' names, their extensions, and their primary devices. The soft phone directory, this is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application. You would download this file, upload it to our desktop soft phone app, and this will allow you to see the status of the other desktop soft phones on your account. Right? So if my colleague Mike is using his soft phone, I'll be able to see, oh, he's on a call. This is great if your staff members, if everyone's just using the soft phone, right? That's their only device. If you have a mix of devices, so let's say my colleague Jeff, he has a Yealink T54G. On my soft phone, I'm not going to be able to tell if he's using that device or not. Store discount code, just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount on our store page, right? The store.virtualpbx.com. And lastly, we have the account realm used in a couple things. One, it's unique to each account. It's used for programming a third-party application, right? So a third-party soft phone. It's one of the 3 pieces of information you need. It's also used when you send a fax out. So on Dash, to send a fax out, it's via email, right? So you create an email like you normally do. In the to field, instead of putting your cousin Bob's email address, you put in the +, the number 1, area code and phone number, the little @ symbol, and then your account realm. And then you just need to attach a PDF or TIFF file and click send. Right? The system will only process 1 attachment per email. It doesn't look at the subject line. It does not look at the body of the email. All right, up here we have the company caller ID. Right, it's just labeled caller ID on the dashboard page. So up top, this pull down, you can select any of your main numbers. Then you have the company caller ID name. This allows you to input 15 characters that include special characters or spaces. And that's information we would also transmit out as part of your outbound caller ID. Then you need to fill out your company emergency information, or E911. It wants a North American address. And then you click Save Changes. And once you click Save Changes, the company caller ID name information is transmitted to the other carriers who support CNAME. It takes them about 3 business days to update their databases, roughly. So what happens when you pick up your VoIP phone, right? So let's say you have a Yealink, say a Yealink T46G, and you make an outbound call. By default, the system will display this 323 phone number as your outbound caller ID, and it's going to try to transmit this information as the caller ID name. Now, the caller ID name, that feature is not supported by every carrier that your call could route through, typically small or very regional carriers, right? So if that happens, your caller ID name will not show up on your to the destination phone you're trying to reach. Additionally, cell phone carriers, they're the ones who control what shows up on the displays on their cell phones, on their network. Some of them want to charge their subscribers extra money to have that information to show up on their cell phones. Like my provider, I looked it up at one point, They wanted an extra $10 a month so I could have company caller ID information show up on my cell phone. Personally, I didn't find that worth it, so I chose not to do so. That's something you will have to be aware of when you're making calls out, since so many people use cell phones, that your company caller ID information may not show up when you are calling a cell phone. Hold music. So hold music on Dash is defined as after a call has reached a user and that user has pressed hold on their VoIP phone. That's when the music on hold file will play. You can upload your own files. Dash will play back .wave, .mp3, and .ogg files. You want to make sure that they are recorded in mono and that they're under 1 megabyte in size. Right, hours is actually part of main number, so let's just go to main number. Up here at the top, we got our main company numbers, right? So these are those 4 numbers that all behave that same way. Now, if I choose not to use a number any longer, right, I can click unassign. And all that means is that it's a spare number now, right? It's still on my account. I can just reassign it someplace else if I want to, or I can later choose to delete the number. Now, if I want to add numbers, any place you can add a number, you're going to have the option to add from your spare numbers. So these are the numbers already on my account. Or you can buy new numbers. And you're not necessarily being charged at that moment. It's just how the system adds a number to your account. And you have your option for local or toll-free. Right, toll-free, right, 8800 number, 888. You choose the prefix you want to work with. Click on search, and the system will see what's available. This list is dynamic, meaning you're competing with other people in real time. So you wouldn't want to click like add this number here and then go to lunch, right? Come back and try to click by numbers, because by that time, it's possible the number's already gone because someone else finished the whole process before you got back. But you would click by numbers. And now the system is verifying that it was truly available. And then it adds it to your account. Local numbers, slightly more complicated in that you need to know the area code that you want to work with. So, oops, I'll choose 310, she's in Los Angeles. And I come back here and it says that there's nothing available. This indicates that this area code is exhausted, meaning that there's no available numbers. Now, you could ask our porting team to see if they could back order a phone number in this area code for you. The downside of that is there's no way for us to give you an ETA, or even confirm if we can get one for you, right? Basically, we're waiting for someone to give up a phone number and then we try to acquire it. So what you would want to do is here, click back to go to search and look for either a nearby area code or an overlay area code. Right? For many of us for many people in large metropolitan areas, you have to do 10-digit dialing. Like growing up, I didn't have to, right? I could do 7-digit dialing. But you want to look for these overlay area codes or a nearby area code and see what's available. And then you could simply click on add numbers. You can add multiple numbers, right? So you can add like 5 numbers at once if you wanted to, and click on buy numbers. Now, in this case, when I buy the number, it's adding it right here to my main numbers. All right, now the process is the same if I wanted to add a number to a user or to a ring group, and we'll touch on that briefly when we get there. Now, once numbers are added, you have a little gear icon here. You can update the caller ID, right? So you can update CNAM for each individual number. And you can turn on the ability to accept inbound CNAM. So that way your staff members will get that CNAM information showing up on their phones. The E911, each phone number can have its own E911 address associated with it. This then allows you on your VoIP devices to select which phone number you want them to associate 911 calls with. Right? So that way when, say, you're your staff member, Cindy, picks up her Yealink phone and dials 911, you can make sure that she has the address for her location. And then you also have prepend here. This allows you to add text in front of the caller ID that shows up on your VoIP phone's displays, right? This gives your staff members a heads up about what the call might be about, especially if they have, different kinds of calls that they might be taking. All right, office hour strategy. New accounts, you start off at 24-hour open office, meaning your system's open and ready to take calls. Otherwise, you can choose to be custom office hours, which means for each day of the week that you're open, you want to put a check mark in front of that day saying, hey, I'm open this day. And then in these boxes here to the right, you want to select your open hours in 24-hour or military time. Down here at the bottom, you have the option to say if your whole facility is closed for lunch. You're going to put a check mark here, and then you can indicate your lunch hours in this 24-hour or military time. And then you would click on Save Changes. Office holidays, your first question is, are you closed for holidays? Put a check mark if you are. If you are, then over here to the right, you have your options for adding holidays. You have single day, date range, and advanced. Each one of these will create a new row. So for instance, a new row, you'd give it a name for like New Year's Eve. You select the month and the day, click on Save Changes. Right? Date range, like I have down here for Xmas break, right? Give it a name, start date, end date. Notice there's no year indicator. So every year on these, this month and date, my Christmas holiday starts. Right? Now, for some holidays, that's great. Other holidays, not so much. So something to keep aware of. And then advanced is like I have up here for Thanksgiving. Right? As I said, hey, the third Thursday of November, we're on holiday. Right? So you choose the month. This middle pull down is 1st through 5th, as well as last, and then the 7 days of the week. Then we have incoming call handling. So this is in relation to my main numbers and my open hours. How do I want the system to handle calls? Right? Likewise, I chose to be closed for lunch. So for my main company numbers during my lunch hours, how do I want the system to handle the calls? Likewise for after hours, likewise for holidays. The options are basically the same, right? So first option here, call comes in, goes to the virtual receptionist. This is a link that you can click. Opens up a new window. So on the left, your main menu. This is what people press on their phones to navigate through your phone system, right? You get to define them. You click on Add Route, and the first pull down, you have 0 through 9, the star key, and the default action. The second pull down, these are options on your system. So Smart PBX directory, right? The user directory, dial by name directory. You can send it to a specific user, right? Meaning a specific staff member. Call queues, if you're making use of ACD queues, you can send callers to a call queue. Devices, you can send calls to a specific phone. Now, this isn't always recommended. For instance, if you send a call to or menu option directly to a web phone, right, that web phone doesn't have its own built-in voicemail. So either that call keeps ringing forever or until the inbound caller hangs up, right? Not always the best experience for your customer. Media, this will play a media file, so a greeting file, right? So this would be if you want to play like your hours of operation or directions. Just be aware of once the media file stops playing, the call ends. Down here, we've got groups. These are departments, right? Hunt groups or ring groups. Advanced call flows. This if you're making use of submenuing and you have multiple, and to do that, you would have to have multiple auto attendants, which is a plan-specific feature. And then lastly, voicemail boxes, right? This is where people would leave a message. Over here on the right, we have greetings. And these are your greeting options. Text to speech, you type in a greeting, You have 250 characters to work with. Sometimes you can go a little bit over that, but 250 is consistently works. It's characters, not words. It's a computerized robotic voice. It's free, right? When you click update, save, and save changes, the system saves the file. It reuses file names for the text-to-speech greeting. So you can literally have a dozen files said for main open hours menu TTS. And when you look at them just by the name, you won't know what they are. So my recommendation, if you're using text-to-speech greetings, when you first create one, after you click that save and save changes, go to your greetings manager, which we'll be getting to shortly, find that file and rename it to something that that will help you recognize it. Right? At the very least, main greeting one, right? So it's the first one you made. You can upload your own file, .wave, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono and under 1 megabyte. You just choose on the file, find it on your computer, and then upload it, then update, save, and save changes. If you already have recording files or media files on your system, the third option here allows you to choose one of them here. And you can see I have a main open hours menu TTS name there. You can record it over the phone. Now, by default, the system wants you to record it with a VoIP phone that's on the account. This is a security feature. If you don't want to do that, let's say, or you can't, let's say because you ordered VoIP phones from us, they're en route to you, but they haven't shown up yet. You're like, well, let me get the greeting in place so that way it's ready to go when they're here. What you would want to do is go to under your settings section here, and where it says allow outside recording, you want to make sure that's on. Now, and then you click save and save changes. With that on, now you can call in with a cell phone or landline. Now, if you just signed up with us, for instance, when you call your main number, you're going to hear a message saying that the greeting for this menu has not been set up. It will then prompt you for the PIN number, right, which is right here. The PIN number changes for each account and for each time of day. Right, you then enter that PIN number. It will walk you through creating a voicemail greeting, a new main greeting over the phone. Now, if let's say you've been with us for a couple months and you're like, oh, I need to change this greeting. It's just not working anymore, or it's not relevant, or things have changed. When you call in, right, you'll have the existing greeting that's already there. Greeting A is playing. You can still enter in your PIN number. The system will recognize it. It will then switch over and let you record a new greeting over the phone. It's going to overwrite the content of greeting file A, right? So the file name stays the same, but the content changes with that new information. Now, most of the time, that's not a big deal. However, usually around holidays is when that becomes a problem, because someone says, oh, I forgot to change the greeting. They call in, they record a new greeting over the phone with the holiday message, and they lost their normal greeting that they use for 3/4 of the year. As I briefly touched on, this PIN number is specific to this time of day, meaning it only works during my open hours. Right? So if I set my system to be open from 9 to 5, if I call in at 6 p.m. and I try to use this PIN number, the system won't recognize it, saying that's an invalid PIN. Professional recording services, when you click order, it will open a new tab and take you to Snap Recordings, and you would just order a greeting from them. They have many voice actors and actresses to choose from. They also have hold treatment, so a mix of a script being read and music. They bill you directly, right? It's not through us. They email you the file, and then you would just click here and upload your own file. All right, settings. So these first two are somewhat linked, right? So number of retries on misdial and dialing timeout. So number of retries on misdial is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake, right? So what I'm saying here is they can make one mistake. Dialing timeout is how much time the system listens for a second button press or a third button press, basically. So it hears a button press, it's going to wait a count of 5 before it assumes the caller is done, right? So someone calls our main number, they get here, they hear my main greeting, and they press 7. The system waits for a count of 5, says, oh, they meant 7. Well, there's no 7 main menu option. There's no extension number 7. So it says, okay, it checks the retry option. It says, oh, they get 1 retry. So now the system will play the main greeting again. That inbound caller, say they press 8 the second time. System waits a count of 5, says, nope, they meant 8. No menu option 8. No extension number 8. Oh, they only have the 1 retry, so that was it. So now it tells them, the system will play back a message to the inbound caller saying, we did not recognize your entry, and either send the call to a default action, or if there's no default action, end the call. So, right after that, pressing button 8, I have a default action here, so the caller would be sent to my smart PBX directory. Right. Most people have the default action go to like a voicemail box. If I don't want that, I can just click X next to here. So now after that second entry, the system just says, we didn't recognize your entry, and says goodbye and ends the call. All right, allow outside recording. Again, you turn this on if you want to record your main greeting with a cell phone or landline. Allow dialing extensions. By default, this is on. This means your inbound caller can enter the extension number if they know it, and the system will transfer the call. Right, so if I turn this off, that means the inbound caller can only press my menu options. Right, so if they don't hit 1, 2, or 3, eventually the system's going to time them out and end the call. Right, even if they know the extension number, it won't let them go through. And then lastly, we have to suppress the playing of invalid entry. So by default, this is off, right? So when someone makes a mistake a couple times, the system says we didn't recognize what you were entering. If you don't want that message to play, then you click this to on, and now that message will not play. Right? You're suppressing it by turning it on. Any changes you make to the main menu, the greetings, or the settings, you need to click save here. And then when you get back to the incoming call handling, click save changes. Right? You're essentially clicking save twice. Right. Second option, call comes in. Oh, actually here, let's go lunch hours. For instance, if I go to my virtual receptionist under lunch hours, it's different. Right. So each time of day, you can have different greetings play. You can have different menu options in even different settings. Right, that's the advantage of having your hours of operation. Now, the second routing option here, this is the live operator answer. Right? The idea here is you're giving a staff member or multiple staff members an opportunity to answer the call first. If they're not able to, then the call goes to your virtual receptionist. This is a pull down, right? So you can select any user, you can select your call queues, you can select a specific phone. And in this case, it's okay, right? Because after about 20 seconds, the system's going to automatically kick the call to the virtual receptionist. You can have a media file play. I don't recommend this just because you'll have 2 greetings play back to back, and that can really confuse your inbound caller or even yourself if you don't remember that you did that. You can send callers to a ring group or a secondary attendant. So like in this case, right, calls come in, I'm offering it to a group of like 5 or 6 people here, right? So like my receptionist team or my front desk team. If they are not able to answer, then it goes to my virtual receptionist. And because I'm under open hours, it's that one we were just previously working with. Right, if I set this up for my lunch hours, again, that's a different auto attendant. Right, this option here, well, you have the option to skip the voicemail, but this full pull down, right, you can offer calls to a user, a group. You can have it play a media file, right, a specific device, a queue, etc. If they're not able to pick up, then you select which voicemail box it's going to. The extra option here is that option to skip right to voicemail, basically saying, hey, we're not taking calls, but send calls to voicemail. This is something I see sometimes for lunch hours, but often for holidays, for like a seasonal business, or like a 1 or 2 person business where the people just decided, hey, I need a break. They're going to Hawaii. This last option here is you're sending it to a secondary auto attendant. So again, only workable if you have multiple auto attendants. Does not come up very often. It's basically you're replacing your primary auto attendant here, your virtual receptionist, with a secondary one for whatever reasons. Main conference number, you can add from spare or buy new numbers to have multiple conference numbers if you're so inclined. You can do a custom text-to-speech greeting. Just type in your text here. Again, 250 characters. Click Save. Even without a custom greeting, the system says welcome to the conference and prompts the inbound caller to enter the conference room number and the PIN number. The main fax box, you can have the one main fax box number. Once you've assigned the number, click down here where it says Edit Fax Box. First up, you have the inbound notification email. You enter an email address here, and that email address will get an email every time a fax comes into the system. There'll be an attachment. They can double click on it and view it as a PDF file. Now, downside, anytime someone dials your fax box number, let's say they dial it from their cell phone and then they hear the fax tones and hangs up, this person's going to get an email saying that there is a failed inbound fax attempt. So that happens that happens more often than you would think. The main thing to keep in mind is if you know that you're expecting a fax and then you got that fax email, right? That's something you'd want to investigate. Like check with the other fax machine to see if they got an error message on their side. The email permissions, this is to set up your outbound faxing permissions. This field is designed to enter in your company email domain, which allows any user at your company to send a fax out without having to be a Dash user, right? So a user on your Dash account. All right, auto attendance. So this is a plan-specific feature, right? Meaning it's available on some plans and not on others. This allows you to create secondary or multiple auto attendants. You would do this because you want to do submenuing, right? 1 for English, 2 for Spanish. That would be on your virtual receptionist. Then you would come to the auto attendants and create a Spanish attendant and then an English attendant, right? Each of those would then have a greeting in the appropriate language, and then their routing options would go to either English speaking or Spanish speaking staff members. The other reason you would do that is, or make use of multiple auto attendants, is if you run multiple small businesses, right? So each business has its own phone number, its own main greeting, but you have the same staff people answering calls for these businesses. So up here at the top, you would click on Add Attendant. You give it a name and an extension number, and then you click on Create Attendant. Now, the extension number probably only going to be used by your staff people. Right? Your customers probably won't know the individual extensions for your various auto attendants. Once you've created an attendant, if you click on the name, you have the option, is it available in main menu or unavailable? Right? Available in main menu means it's a submenu option. It can also show up as other destinations and other parts of the account. If you leave it as unavailable in main menu, you're saying this is a standalone attendant. Right? So it's going to have its own main number. It's not going to be a menu option under anywhere else in the system. Attendants can have their own phone numbers. You can add multiple, right? So I can still add more numbers. I still have the option here to adjust the caller ID, the 911, and the prepend. Here's where you can adjust the extension number. If you're going to change an extension number for an attendant, a user, or group, I recommend add a new extension first and put the new extension number here. Click Save Changes, come back, right? Click on this a second time, and then unassign the original extension, and then click on Save Changes. You can click on the little wrench icon here under Settings. And you see here, I have open hours, lunch hours, after hours, and holidays, right? The auto attendants, they're pulling the time of day settings, right? So your open hours from your main number settings, right? So your secondary, your several other businesses would all have to have the same hours of operation that you set up for your main business on the account. Now, all of these, you only have the option for going to the virtual receptionist, right? So you set up menu options, a greeting, and you click, set up the settings. You would click save, and then save changes. Right. Next up, we have devices. So this shows your devices on the account. Red means it's unregistered, meaning if we try to send a call to it, it's not going to go through, right? For like a soft phone or a web phone, for instance, right? They're not logged in. Most likely is the most likely reason, right? Maybe they're not even properly set up yet. You don't know, right? This down here, the Cisco phone, right? This is a physical VoIP phone, so this could be it's not plugged in. Now, could be something more complicated, right? Green, like this one here, that means it's registered, so we can send calls to these devices. And then black means you've turned it off. Right, so I could go here and I could turn that off. This page will update and now it's black. Up here at the top, you can add devices directly to this page. SIP phone is that physical VoIP phone. You have these manufacturers to choose from. Right? Some of them have a lot of phones. Some don't. You want to find the manufacturer and then the model of the phone that you're working with. And then you first need to give it a name. Right? I usually use the person's first name and the word phone. Right? So Bob's phone. Some people like was putting phones with number, right? So phone 1, phone 2, etc. Then you need the MAC address. The MAC address is unique to each phone, typically a sticker on the back of the phone. If the phone's plugged in, usually under like your basic settings or your status settings, there'll be a field for MAC, MAC, and you would just enter that information here. Click on Create Device. And after you do that, the only other thing you would need to do is go to the users and assign it to a user. So for the dashboard, you're done, but you're not done with the phone. You need to log into the phone's web user interface, right, the web UI, and you need to enter in a URL. Basically, you're telling the phone, hey, go here, get your config file. It will do so. Typically, they reboot a couple times, and then they show up as a green device. For the specifics of that, you want to go to our support pages and look for the document called Auto Provisioning Phones. It's going to have screenshots for these 6 manufacturers, the proper syntax for that URL, and usually a couple other settings to make better, just to verify that they're set up properly. Cell phone and landline, pretty easy. You give it a name, right? Angela's phone, put +1 area code and phone number, and then you click on Create Device. Get rid of that one. Let's just do that. So here's that device here that I just added. I'm going to click on the wrench icon here and go to advanced options. This is the default settings for a new cell phone or landline. So when Dash offers a call to a cell phone or landline, right, that phone will ring, right? When you pick up, you're going to hear an automated message come from the system saying, this is a forwarded call, please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system yes, you're there, and yes, you want to take the call. It then connects that inbound caller to you. Now, that doesn't work in every situation. For instance, let's say I added this cell phone number in quotes, and really what I'm doing is I'm sending it to an automated answering service to handle my calls for after hours purposes. Well, in that case, right, that automated answering service doesn't know when to press one. Right? It doesn't even know how to. So what I would want to do is right here, where it says allow use of cell phone's voicemail, I would want to put a check mark in front of it, click on save changes. So now when I send that call to that device, right, my automated answering service picks up, the dash system hears that pickup tone and connects the call. Right? We don't wait for that one to be rang or to be sent to us. Right? So that's great for that automated answering service. Something to keep in mind, if this was my actual cell phone, then what happens is, or what can happen is my cell phone voicemail can pick up, right? The system still treats that like a connected call. So then that inbound caller ends up on my personal cell phone's voicemail box. Now, some people really want that. Other people definitely do not. That's a purely a personal preference sort of thing. The other thing to keep in mind is this one here, the keep original caller ID. So by default, this is checked. Let's get this back to default here. And so let's say customer Mary calls my main number. It gets to my cell phone. On my cell phone, I see customer Mary's phone number. I don't recognize the number. I've gotten a ton of calls about updating my auto warranty. Kind of tired of it. So I let the call go to voicemail. And let's say, unfortunately, I missed an opportunity, right? Customer Mary moved on to somebody else. So what I could do instead is uncheck this where it says keep original caller ID. So now when customer Mary calls me, instead of seeing her phone number show up on my cell phone, oops, wrong thing. Right, I would see my 323 phone number here, right? So that's a way to let me know this is a work call. Right, soft phone on the devices page. Okay, one you should read this warning message. But when you add a soft phone on the devices page, it only allows you to add a third-party soft phone. And what that means is a soft phone from someone else, right? So you're using someone else's software. But you would give a name, then you would copy and paste the SIP username, right? You would click on the SIP password box to see the SIP password, so then you can copy and paste that, and then you copy and paste the realm. Those three pieces of information are what you would need to program or provision that device from that other provider or that other company, I guess is the proper way to say that. And then you would, after create device, assign it to a user. All right, let's go to the greetings manager here. Here you see your various media files that you have added to the account. Right, this includes your voicemail greetings, your main greetings, any hold music files you've added. Right, you see the name and then you see the source. Right, upload, you uploaded it. Right, TTS, text to speech, recorded over the phone. You can download these files so you can listen to them and make sure they're relevant. And then you have the little wrench icon here, so you can delete a greeting if you don't need it anymore, or you can rename it so it's something you can more easily recognize. So like I have a main holiday menu TTS here, That's something I should probably look at some point and determine if that's still relevant. Here you see I have a main open hours menu TTS. Now, right now I have no idea what this says. So what I'm doing here is check on this. So that way I know to come back later, download it, listen to it, make sure it's still relevant or not. And if it is relevant, rename it to something I'll recognize, or I'll just click on the wrench icon and remove it. Up here at the top, you can add additional greetings, right? Give it a name, find the file on your computer, and upload. .mp3, .ogg, .wav, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. All right, groups, right? Short for ring groups or hunt groups, basically departments. Up here at the top, you click Add Group. You need to give it a name and an extension number. Then you click and drag your staff members over to the right that you want to be a part of this group, right, or this department. And then you click on Create Group. Once a group's created, you can click on its name. You can change the name at any time. And then you have this one here, the group call attempts. This is how many times the system will offer calls to the group members. Right? You got little arrows here to the right where you can adjust that. And then you would click on Save Changes. To the right, we have the members box. I have 5 members or 5 people, right, associated to this group. This is the order that they're getting calls are going to be offered to them, right? So Michael first, John, Aaron, Peter, and David. You notice up here, I have timestamps. I can adjust this. It defaults to 120. Let's say I change it to 240. And then I can click distribute, and now that equalizes the amount of time that call is offered to each of my staff members. If I want to remove a staff member, I just click on this remove box, and then hit Save Changes. That removes them from the group. These are sliders, right? So you can click and drag them around. So I'm going to set up what's called blast ringing. Right? I don't have to do that, right? I could stop here, right? And do something like that if I wanted to. Right? But like this is ring all, right? So blast everyone at the same time. So let's say I just wanted to test it to see who's quicker, right? Who's my fastest, response people? Or I can say, nope, I just need to go in order because David's on a project. So I don't want him being disturbed by his phone ringing all the time. Right now, I can click and drag, and let's say David finishes his project and Michael just got a new one. So now I want to make sure that Michael isn't disturbed. Well, right now, I haven't actually changed the order that the calls are being offered, right? Because Michael starts at 0. So he's still getting that first call, or the first one to ring. But if I click distribute now David's first, Michael's at the end. Something to keep in mind about calls that go to a group. If your staff members have multiple devices and you assign them to a group, all of their devices will ring at the same time. Right? So let's say David has got let's say he's got 3 phones, right? His cell phone, he's got a web phone, and a soft phone. When a call comes to him from the group, all 3 of them are going to ring at the same time. Likewise, let's say David answers the call and on his soft phone, and a second call comes into the group, right? He's going to hear a call waiting beep on his soft phone, right? Until it rolls over to the second person. Now, on that device, right, he could go in and adjust the settings on his soft phone to not hear the call waiting beep, so it's not as disruptive to him. The main difference, well, one of the main differences between groups and an ACD queue is an ACD queue, currently, you can only take calls with a VoIP phone, right? So SIP phone, a soft phone, or even the web phone, right? Whereas on a group, you can take calls on a cell phone or landline as well. Now, your staff members aren't able to take themselves out of the group unless they're a system admin, right? So the only way they can stop taking a group call is if they use the D&D toggle at the top to put themselves on Do Not Disturb. Otherwise, they're always going to be offered calls. Extensions, right? Groups can have extension numbers. You can have them have multiple right? Groups can also have their own phone numbers, and you can add multiple, right? Either add from spare or by new. Now, these phone numbers on these two groups, right? These are not main number phone numbers, nor are they auto-attendant phone numbers. So that means they don't have hours of operation or holidays, meaning that they're available 24/7. So something to be aware of if you have staff members using their personal cell phones as devices, is they can get calls at all hours or on holidays. Group features. These are all the group features. So first up is ring back. So call goes to a group, right? It's offered to the group member or members, and then their phones ring. That ringing sound gets piped back to your inbound caller, right? The system hears it and pipes it all the way through. If you don't want that ringing sound to be sent to your inbound caller, you can use ringback to replace that ringing sound, right? So you would click enable, you upload a media file, right? .wave, .mp3, .ogg, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Now, if for some reason we don't get that ringing sound from your staff members, then your inbound caller doesn't hear anything. They just hear silence until it gets to the next user or next device that actually gives us that ringing sound. Next action, if you enable this, what do you want to do if no one answers? This is a pull down, and you can send them back to your main menu. One of your secondary attendants can send them to a call queue, a specific phone, another ring group, a specific user, or a voicemail box. Allow call forward. If you enable this, you're letting your users make use of call forwarding on their devices, right? So they're not at their normal desk phone, but they're forwarding calls to their cell phone, which they don't have as the device on their user. Caller ID prepend, if this is enabled, this is for use with your VoIP phones, right? You can add additional text or numbers that shows up on their VoIP phones displays to let them know what the call might be about, right? This is useful for people who are in multiple groups or queues. All right, numbers. This takes you to your numbers in use page. This shows you where your numbers are being used. You can't unassign numbers here or assign numbers here. This just lets you know their status. You do have the gear icon, so you can update the caller ID, E911, and prepend. Under spare numbers, these are the numbers you're not currently using. So this then up here at the top, right, I can buy new numbers, so I can add local toll-free numbers and just add more numbers as spare numbers. But if I want to get rid of a number, then what you want to do is click on the little checkbox in front of the number. And we'll do that to this one here. And now you see I have this option to delete. I just click on delete, I confirm, and then I click on continue. And now those numbers are no longer on my account. So I reduce my bill by 2 phone numbers. Port, this actually starts the port process. You give it a name and choose local or toll-free. Click next. And now the system wants you to upload a copy of your bill. It's going to ask you for the phone numbers you want to port, the address that's associated with that number, as well as the account number. Then you can download a blank letter of agency or LOA. You would need to fill that out and sign it, and then you can upload it within that same process. There's 4 checkboxes you need to check, and then you submit. When you click submit, it will upload the documents. You'll get an email right away from the system, right? It's just an automated email saying, hey, you sent this in. By the next business day, you should get a second email from our porting team, right? Actual people, saying, yes, we did it. It got all the way through, and yes, we're processing it, as well as what to expect about the porting process. Porting local numbers can take anywhere, well, they average about 2 to 3 weeks. Sometimes it's as very quick as 1 business day, but normally it's in that 2 to 3 week range. Toll-free numbers take about 3 to 5 business days, excuse me. And for both cases, this assumes everything is correct. If there's a problem, right, we get a rejection notice. Our team double checks to make sure there wasn't a typo, right? Just make sure something's, simple wasn't missed or was, mistyped. And then they would send the information on to you saying, we got an address mismatch rejection. And sometimes that's all they tell us, right? The address isn't right. Other times they might say, oh, the street number was incorrect. But whatever it is, we need to find out whatever the current carrier is expecting to see in order to get the number to port out. You can also email the porting team your LOA and your copy of your phone bill if for some reason the port process on the dashboard doesn't work properly. All right, users tab. This shows your users on the account. Little gray person icon, that means they're a standard user. Right? The blue suit, that means they are system admins, meaning they can do all the things we've been talking about today. Up here at the top is where you add a new user. And you essentially fill out the form, right? First and last name, that's pretty easy. The email address used for login needs to be unique for each user. That means, right, so you can't reuse an email address. Right? So if I wanted to use support@virtualpbx.com, I can use that for one person. The next person, I have to use something different. Password, you create the password, and then you can enter the extension number. This system was started with extension 1000. So the system is being helpful and saying the next available one in that series is 1012. I don't have to do that. Right? I can create my own extension number. Like for instance, let's say I decided to open a second business. I created a secondary attendant. For my staff members who are handling calls for that specifically, I'm giving them their own extension number series. Now, by default, the system will create a voicemail box for this user. That voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So for instance, if I created this user, and then let's say I added a Yealink phone right to their user, right? And that person is in the office. I'm like, all right, you're on the system, your phone is online and added, we got it provisioned properly. Now that person, call him George, he can pick up his phone, he can dial *98 on that VoIP phone. That will log him in directly into the voicemail box you just created for his user. The system will then prompt him to create his own PIN number, which he should hopefully write down, and then, or she, and then prompt them to record their voicemail box greeting. Right, so then their voicemail box is all set up. Right, then they're ready to roll. Up here, we have included in the user directory. Put a check mark if you want them to be, or not, or no check if you don't want them to be. You can change that later. Send emails to an alternate address. So the email address used for login is the default email address we use to send like voicemail notifications, for instance, or password reset emails. If for some reason you don't want that address being used, excuse me, then you would put a check mark here and put in a different email address. Again, you can change this later. And lastly, send credentials to the user. I typically put a check mark here. If you only needed to create one person, you just click on create user. Otherwise, create user and add another. Once a user is created, you can click on their name. Right, so you can always change their name. You can change their email address and their password if you need to. You also have the option here to resend them or send them the password reset email. You can change their voicemail box PIN number temporarily if you, like, for some reason think it's compromised or something they can't remember. Here's your option to send to an alternate address. Here's the option to include in the user directory. This pull down is where you can change a user to an admin or an admin to a user. This is the time zone for the user, right? So you can select the appropriate time zone, which would be helpful for voicemail timestamps. Little flag icon here. This pull down allows you to change the website display language for this user. French, English, French, German, or Russian are the options. Ringing timeout. This is how much time the system will ring the device on the or devices on the user. The default is 20 seconds, which is plenty of time for a VoIP phone or a landline. If you have users only using a cell phone, you're going to want to increase this to at least 30 seconds, maybe even up to 45. And it simply takes longer to route a call to a cell phone than it does to, say, a landline, right? The landline telecom knows exactly where the phone is. Your cell phone telecom, they don't know where you are, so they have to ping the cell phone towers to find you. When they find you, then they can route the call to you, right? So that time delay in terms of trying to find you is why you need to have more routing time on the PBX system. All right, extensions, right? Users can have multiple extensions if you want them to. Users can have their own phone numbers if you want them to. Again, this phone number is open 24/7. You either buy from new or add from spare. Oh, actually, let's. So here on the devices box, you can add devices directly to a user. So like the web phone. I can create the device and then save changes. And so now the web phone icon would show up for him when he logs in. The other thing is the soft phone. We'll see if this allows me to do it. So here we have an extra option, right? Where it says use third-party application, that's what it defaults to. You can click on that and it flips it to say use VirtualPBX application. So now I just need to give it a name, right? Then I click create device and then I click save changes. And then JTest here will then get an email with his login information for use with the VirtualPBX soft phone. There'll also be download links in that email. Right, so that's the major difference on the device page versus the user page, right? On the user page, you have the option to add a VirtualPBX soft phone. On the device page, you don't. All right, so we can click on the user features box here. Caller ID number, this only works for users that have their own phone numbers. When you turn it on, you're selecting their phone number and what we're doing is saying, when David makes an outbound call with his VoIP phone, right? So he's got a soft phone and a web phone, for instance, right? Whatever phone he uses, you're saying his outbound caller ID is going to be the 775 number, right, in Nevada. Instead of, if I turn this off, right? So now when he makes an outbound call, go back to dashboard, it's going to default to this 323 phone number. Virtual text application. This is a new feature for new accounts. For existing accounts, if you're interested in this, you're going to need to talk to our account services team. But you click on this, you click to turn it on, and then you have a pull down of phone numbers. The phone numbers are going to be either your main numbers or your auto-attended phone numbers. And then you would click on Save Changes. At that point, after you click Save Changes, you should get or Aaron should get an email with his virtual text login information. So he'll go to virtualtext.app. He'll log in there, and he can then basically make use of texting from the main numbers or see conversations from the main numbers. Just keep in mind is when you make use of virtual text, right? So Aaron is a standard user on his Dash account. So in virtual text, he'd only be a standard user. Whereas myself here, right? I'm an admin. So if I add virtual text to myself here, right, I'm going to be an admin in virtual text, right? Same user response. The system will utilize the email address used for login for VirtualPBX or for the virtual text, and that means they're associated with only that one email address, right? So you can't reuse email addresses among different users on virtual text as well. We do have some information on our website about virtual text, and in this near future, we'll have like a demo video up on our YouTube channel about it as well. But literally, it just went live today. Voicemail box. This was activated with the user. So it's enabled. Transcription is actually a plan-specific feature, and all it is the system listens to the voicemail and types it out in the email notification to the best of its ability, right? If people are not speaking into their microphone properly, or if there's a lot of wind noise, so a lot of background noise, the system may not be able to pick it up. Voicemail to email, if you click enable, then the system will send this user emails, notifications when they have a voicemail. There'll be an attachment by default in MP3, so they can just double click on it and listen to it. Now, every voicemail box can hold up to 100 messages. After that, the voicemail box is full and will not accept any more. So you can also have this option here to delete after the notification, right? So after that system sends an email, if you put a check mark here, then the system will delete the voicemail from the voicemail box, excuse me. Now, that means your user could only ever hear or only ever check their voicemails on their email, right? They're not going to be able to call in to listen to it over the phone. They're not going to be able to see or listen to them on their user portal. All right, follow me. This is for users with multiple devices. You need to tell the system which phones to ring, and then you have sliders that you can adjust, right? You got a little timestamp here. Just like groups, right? You've got an option to distribute. You can click and drag, etc. Fax box, you can choose to have users have their own fax box if you want them to. And then you have a couple options, right? You can add from a spare number, you can buy a new number, or you can use an extension. I recommend making use of a phone number, right? That means this person can send and receive faxes, right? If you use an extension number, right, that saves you the cost of the phone number. However, this person can only ever receive a fax. They'll never be able to send out a fax because the system will try to use the extension number as the outbound caller ID, and it will fail. Likewise, an additional caveat is they may still have trouble receiving faxes, right? Because basically what has to happen is the person faxing has to call your main number, right? When they get to the greeting, they have to enter the extension number that they're faxing to, then they click send fax. Now, some physical fax machines, right, you have the ability to put like star or comma to give a pause to enter in then you can enter in additional digits. But like an electronic fax service or email to fax service, they may not have the ability to allow you to fax to an extension. So that's something to be aware of. Conference bridge. When you enable this, the only thing as an admin you need to do is set up the PIN number and then click on Save Changes. And what you're doing is when you set up a conference bridge on a user, you're saying that this person is the moderator for that conference, right? They're the person hosting it. Call forwarding. You have off, on, or failover. Your users can turn call forwarding off or on. Right? Failover mode is an admin function. You select mobile or desk phone, and then you put +1 area code and phone number, and then you click on Save Changes. Now, what failover mode does is when this user's VoIP phone becomes unregistered, it becomes red on the devices page. right? And that call happens to be offered to the user, whether it's from a group or it's just to their extension number. The system will automatically forward the call to the phone number that you enter here. So the main thing to keep in mind is that this phone or this phone number should not be added as a cell phone or a landline on the user already, right? This phone should be something that you use sporadically. All right, customize call recording. By default, when you first enable it, it looks like this, right? And the system wants you to tell it which kind of calls are you recording. So inbound internal means another Dash user is calling me, right? So coworker Bob, right? Inbound external, customer Mary, right? Outbound internal, that means I'm calling my coworker Mary, right? Whereas outbound external means I am calling customer Donald. And then save changes. Every account includes some amount of storage. It's going to vary by the account plan that you're on. So you'd want to double check with our account services team. If you have heavy call volume and you're going to record every call, you definitely want to look to linking your Dash account with an AWS account, right? So if you already have an AWS account, you can link Dash to that and have AWS handle your call storage. So that way you don't have to worry about our storage in terms of how much you have and any overages you might be getting. Right? If you're only recording like one call a week, you probably don't need to worry about it. Music on hold, users can have their own hold music if you want them to. You just click enabled and either find the file that already exists on your system from the pull down or upload your own. .mp3, .ogg, .wav, recorded in mono. Do not disturb, you can put a user on do not disturb, meaning calls will not be offered to them. It goes to voicemail. And then hot desking, if you enable this is a VoIP phone feature. Give it a hot desk ID. I usually say match it to their extension number. I don't remember what this extension number is. Up to you if you want to include a PIN number or not, and then you click on Save Changes. Now, this is good for a shared office environment or for offices that are going to a hybrid schedule. So you may not have as many desks and as many VoIP phones as you used to. So let's say I come into the office on Tuesdays. I sit down at desk number 2. I pick up the VoIP phone. I dial *11 on the phone. I hit send. That's the feature code to turn on hot desking. Right? The system will ask me for my hot desk ID, and if there's a PIN number, right, it will ask me for the PIN number. And then it will tell me calls will now be sent to this device. So now for the rest of my workday, any call that's coming to my user, right, going to ring at the phone that I'm sitting at. End of my day, I pick up the phone, I hit *12, click send, and now I turned off hot desking. Let's say I don't come into the office again until Friday. Someone's already sitting at desk number 2. I say hello to Felicia, and then I sit down at desk number 5. Do the same thing, right? Pick up the phone, *11, hot desk ID, and now I'm taking calls at desk number 5. All right, voicemail boxes. You'll see all your user voicemail boxes here, right? And they have their name associated with them here. You can also create your own voicemail boxes up here at the top. You just give it a name, a voicemail box number, and a PIN number, and you click on Create Voicemail Box. And you would do that for, say, your ring groups or like your ACD queues, right, where you don't want to use someone's personal voicemail box for that purpose. For any voicemail box, you can click on the little wrench icon here. Under the basic settings, you see the name, the voicemail box number, and the PIN number, right? And you would use these last two to record its greeting over the phone or to even check messages over the phone. Under Advanced, go to Greeting Media. You can upload a media file, right? So voicemail box greeting here. You can select from files that are already in place. Now, the media is the normal file that plays, right? If you have something selected under the temporary, it's going to play and supersede anything you have set under the media file, right? So this is your vacation or out of office message. Once you set temporary back to none, then the system will play the media file again. Recipients, your user voicemail boxes already have a built-in recipient, right? That email address used for login. If you want to add additional recipients, this is where you would do it. We just click add recipient and then put in the email address here. If you need to add more, you just keep clicking add and add additional email addresses. For any voicemail box you create, you definitely want to add at least one recipient just so someone knows that this voicemail box is getting in voicemails. And then click on Save Changes. And then lastly, options. So once you have a media file and recipients, right, then you can click on Already Set Up. And then you have the option here, do you want to delete after notification as well as send the attachment? The other thing you can do is you can delete a voicemail box. Now, I don't recommend deleting the user voicemail boxes because you'll lose that intrinsic, link with the users. And the only way to recreate that would be to delete the user and recreate them from scratch. Advanced routing, this is for direct inward system access, or DISA. This is not actually enabled on new accounts when you first sign up. So this is something you have to talk to our account services team to get enabled. This allows you to call into your system with a cell phone or landline. And you essentially log in over the phone, and then you can make an outbound call. And when you make that outbound call, instead of your cell phone number showing up as the outbound caller ID, it's your main company number. So once you've talked to account services, you have the option here to enable it. And it automatically creates a PIN number for you. Now, just like this, then you would need to set up a menu option under either your virtual receptionist or one of your auto attendants. Right, press that menu option, enter the PIN number, make an outbound call. I don't recommend doing it that way. I recommend click Edit Settings, add an extension number, right? And again, the system just says, hey, your next extension number in the sequence is 1012. Use something out of order, right? Something that you don't have any other extension numbers associated with. And then Save Changes. So now you call into your system that goes to the virtual receptionist or one of your secondary attendants. You enter in the extension number you just created. The system will prompt you for the PIN number. Then you'll hear dial tone. Then you just enter area code and phone number, make an outbound call, and instead of your cell phone number showing up as a caller ID, right, your main company number shows up. Now, and the reason I don't want you to use a menu option is because someone will eventually figure out that, oh, a menu option asks me for a PIN number. Well, unfortunately, there are people, bad actors, who will try to figure out that PIN number, and then they'll try to start making outbound calls on your account, and you're not going to know about it right away, and that might increase your bill. Now, one way you might be able to keep track of it is via the call logs. Down here on the bottom left, this shows your call history on the account. So a green arrow to the right here, it's a call coming into the system. Click on this one here, and we'll see if it's been offered to any devices. Yeah, so you see here, it went to this particular device. They didn't answer, but then it did connect here, and they had, so no one answered, excuse me. Now here, we have an outbound call, and I can't tell what device it was used. So this might have been someone making use of DISA. Now, oops, excuse me. Sorry about that. All right, so you can go back further in the week to see other calls that you've had. Or you can go back further back for a month. Right, and you can see calls were offered to what devices, and if they picked up, you'll see normal clearing at the end. And normal clearing just means the call ended normally, right? Right. Service not implemented, right? That means I had some sort of problem. And that was I was playing around with the setting on one of my devices. I just wanted to see what happened. Right. But these other outbound calls, you'd want to check on to see what is going on. Right here, I can see someone use their web phone. So I'm like, oh, okay, that's a legitimate outbound call. Any of these I can download as a CSV file. And I can, especially if you're good with spreadsheets, right, you could sort the information and make better use of it. You also have this custom option where you can set your date range and download for a longer time. The system will let you go back up to 1 year, right, 12 months. If you need your call log information for compliance reasons, I would strongly suggest you do that every month. If you have heavy call volume, you might have to do your searches by week, depending on the call volume you have. All right, feature codes. I've alluded to a couple of these. These are ways your VoIP phone users can use their phones to directly access different features of Dash. This information is on their support pages. There's also a document called the Phone Commands Cheat Sheet, which gives you a little write-up, like a brief, like one sentence, how to use the feature. All right, so that was a dashboard. A blacklist is an included feature. This allows you to create a list of phone numbers that you are blocking from reaching your system. Right, so hey, they try to call you, they get busy tone. So you would click Edit Blacklists, and for a new list, you would click Add. You give it a name, and then you choose, are you blocking anonymous or not? Right, if you are, you turn it on. Now we can go here. You can see here, I chose not to. You click Add Number. You put +1 area code and phone number. No parentheses, no dashes, no spaces. Just +1 number, area code and number. Right, so you could pull the information from the call log and then add it into here. And you just keep clicking Add to add additional numbers. You would click Save. You go back to Settings. You make sure your lists are over here on the right under Selected. And then you click Update. And now every phone number on these two lists, when they try to call any of my VirtualPBX numbers, right? So any of my main numbers, any of my user numbers, any of my group numbers, whatever, right? As long as it's on the account, those calls will be blocked. They get a busy tone. Call recording. So by default, the call recording link actually takes you to recordings.virtualpbx.com, which uses your Dash login, and you can log in and view your recordings, play them back, delete them, etc. You could also link AWS, in which case when you click on call recordings, it would show you the information on AWS's side. So again, you can manipulate the data. Monitor is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to see the status of everyone on the account. It doesn't matter what phone they're using. Right now, this is a test account, so no one's really on a call, but I can see who's available, see who's busy. I can go by specific device if I'm so inclined. Over here, you can see the active incoming calls, right? So there'd be a box for each one, who they're speaking to and what device they're using. For the parked calls, if there's a parked call, you would see the parking spot number here as well. Reports, this opens up a new tab. It takes you to reports.virtualpbx.com. This is a plan-specific feature, right? It's our advanced reporting. This allows you to create your own reports. So that way you have more control about the data that you're getting about your call activity on your account. On our YouTube channel, under videos, there is an advanced reporting demo. I strongly encourage you to take a look at that. If this is something you're interested in, because it's plan specific, you would want to double check with our account services team to see if you need to change plans or not, or what they need to do to get it active on your account. Voicemails, this takes you to your voicemail box manager. So if you have a voicemail box that's full, right, you can find it in the pull down, go to the voicemail box, and now you can see, okay, like this voicemail box, right, 4 total messages, 3 haven't been listened to, 1 has. I see the date and the time, where the call came from, right? What phone number they originally dialed, right? How long the message is. I can play it back. I can download it. I can see additional details. Right now, as an admin, when you click on the box here, I can move it to a different voicemail box. I could also mark it for deletion or as new or as listed, etc. Integration AWS, that's just to link your AWS account to your Dash account. ACD queues. ACD stands for Automatic Call Distribution, call center feature. It's an upgrade to existing plans. Although in some cases you may need to change plans to be able to upgrade to queues. So for all of that, you definitely need to talk to account services. We have two kinds of queues available, right? What we see here are standard ACD queues. We also have ACD queues Pro. Now, accounts can only have one or the other. You can't have both types. So I can only show you one. However, on the YouTube channel, again, under videos, there's the ACD queues Pro demo. So you can see some of the different features there. And we'll go ahead and dive in here. You click on Add New Queues to create a queue. I'm just going to click on the gear icon here to see the settings of an existing queue. But you give it a name, and then you choose either a phone number or an extension for a queue. I can have one or the other, not both. It can still be a menu option, right, from your virtual receptionist or auto attendants. Right. Then you have a routing strategy. You've got pull down here. Round robin will equalize out over time. Most idle, whoever's been waiting the longest gets the next call. Least calls means the least amount of connected calls, right? So if Bob is spoken to 2 customers, Mary has spoken to 5, under least calls, Bob gets offered the next call. Now, least calls is the least amount of connected and missed calls. So in that scenario, let's say Bob's been offered 20 calls, right? But Mary's been only offered 5. Even though Mary's spoken to all 5 and Bob's only spoken to 2, under least offers, Mary gets the next call that comes in. Now, under those last 2 scenarios, let's say Dylan logs in and to join Bob and Mary. Well, Dylan's getting all the next calls, right? Because he's below both of them under either scenario. Hold treatment. You can upload media file, right? .mp3, .ogg, .wav. Right? Just click upload file and upload it to the system. On ACD Queues Pro, you can also do things like announce their position in line, announce their approximate wait time. You can also have multiple media files play, right? So you have media file 1, announce their position in line, media file 2, announce their expected wait time, and then media file 3, or 4, or 5, etc. Queue timeout, measured in seconds, how much time your inbound callers can wait on hold, right? So 3,600 seconds. The queue call limit is how many people can wait on hold. This is on top of people who are already speaking to your staff members, right? So I'm saying 4 people can wait on hold and on top of whoever is already talking to my staff. If I change this to 0, that means there's no limit. Now, timeout immediately if empty. If I have no staff members logged in and I enable this, call comes in, the system will treat that caller as if they hit that 3,600 seconds. Escalation call flow after timeout. What do you want the system to do with the call after that 3,600 seconds? It's a pull down. You select where you want it to go. Zero out call flow. If you select something here on this pull down, you're giving their inbound caller the option to press 0. And when they do so, then the pull down tells them where to go. If you keep this at none, that means they can't press 0 to get out of waiting on hold. Agent recovery time measured in seconds. This is after an agent has completed a call in the queue. It's how much time the system will wait before it offers them a second call, right? So time to get a sip of water, update their notes, etc. Force away on reject or missed. If a user misses a call and you have this enabled, that means the system will automatically put them in away mode. until they mark themselves as ready again. Agent connect timeout measured in seconds. Default is 20. Right? In queues, you can only accept calls with a VoIP phone. So 20 seconds is enough time to have a call offered and for an agent to pick up. And then you would click on either create queue or in this case, save changes. Once you have queues created, over here on the left, you click on the members icon. Here you see my available people to be in queues. Doesn't mean they're all assigned to queues yet. It's just this is my pool of people I'm saying can be. Up here, I click on manage members. Now the list on my left, these are my other staff members, right? So these people are not available to be in a queue. If I want to add them to be, I just click on their name and then I click add as members. I can click on multiple if I wanted to. But you now see that Gene has been added over here. Likewise, I can remove people if I don't want them to be in queues any longer either. Then we go back to queues. Now here, if you click on the queue, you'll see the staff member who is logged in, which is myself. I have agents here, right? So I can click and drag additional people to be in the queue. So now they have the ability to log into a specific queue. Once you've assigned agents to a queue, you can make them managers, right? That would just be click and drag and save changes. For your staff members, once you've made them a queue member, right, then hopefully you would have then assigned them to a queue. When they next log in, they'll have this ACD queues link up here. When they first get here, let me end my session. Right, so I've logged in for the day. I come under ACD queues. I click on begin session. Now the system is marked me away by default, right? I'm red, I'm away. I want to click on this little phone icon and I want to make sure I choose one of my VoIP devices. Now, right now, that VoIP device is red, it's unregistered, right? So that should tell me as a user, I'm like, oh, I better double check my device and make sure I get logged in. But once I've done that, then I would mark myself as ready, and you see I've turned green. This little bar here will turn light blue when I'm being offered a call. When I'm actually on a connected call, right, it will turn a dark blue. If I'm on a call that's outside of the queue, right, so someone called my extension number directly, or I call the customer back, this will show up as yellow. And then if I'm on wrap-up time, so I just ended a call, then this will be a gold color. But the main thing is you want to make sure your users have selected a specific VoIP device, so that way they ring properly. All right, dynamic caller ID. This is also a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID for your VoIP phone users. So this first one down here is I just labeled 408, and what I've said is whenever my VoIP phone users dial a 408 area code, change their caller ID to match to this 408 phone number up here. Right, so it looks like a local call. This other one I created here is a feature code. So now my users have to dial *550 on their VoIP phone, then the area code and phone number they're reaching out to. When the system sees that feature code, it will change their outbound caller ID to this 323 phone number. Faxes, this is your fax manager. So you can see the different faxes that have come into the account. Right, you can download them, you can see details, you can see the phone number, the date, etc. The outbound faxes, right, you can see, oh, okay, I had a failure here. Now, when you see failures under the outbound fax tab, what that means is the system had a problem communicating with the other fax machine. Now, if you click on details, Sometimes you get additional information about what happened. Sometimes you don't. Right, so this one just says success was false. So all we know is it didn't work. Sometimes you see things like user busy, right? So the line was busy. Sometimes you see like a disconnect message happen too soon, that sort of thing. Under email to fax logs, you see your different error messages here. Now this means the system had a problem processing the request, right? So it didn't even try to reach out to the fax machine. So you can see the email address that it came from, right? You can see the format of how they sent it out, so you can make sure that was correct, right? You see the date, the time, little eyeball icon here, and now it's saying, oh, this person doesn't exist on the account. And that's because, hey, it's a Gmail account. Maybe it's because I didn't give them permissions, right? Maybe it's someone used their personal email address versus their work email address. Other times, there was a problem converting a PDF, right? Sometimes that just means just resave the file and resend, right? No valid attachment. That could mean someone didn't put an attachment on the email, right? Or they had tried to attach a JPEG or something other than a PDF or a TIFF file. Number manager just takes you back to your spare numbers page. Webhooks actually a plan-specific feature. You'd want to talk to our sales team about this. This allows you to link Dash to other software, right? So like Zapier, for example. So you can link Dash to Zapier, and then you can have that data be sent to Zapier to then display in a different format for you. We actually have a webinar on our YouTube channel, Introduction, I believe it's Introduction to Zapier is the title. It does have Zapier in the name of it, but it will talk about webhooks there. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see sample code of what we have done in terms of connecting Dash to other software. And this does take some programming, so please be aware of that. And then lastly, we have the user portal. Every user has their own user portal, right? The voicemails will only show up here if you do not delete after notification, right? If this user had their voicemail box set up to have delete after notification, there'd be nothing here. But this allows the user to play back or download the message, and then they can choose to mark it for deletion, etc. Users can see their call history. They can adjust the date range just to see what's going on. Fax tab only really works if they have their own fax box. The contact list tab, this allows them to see the other users' extension numbers, the groups, the other auto attendants, the queues, etc. This is something your standard users cannot add to, right? Only admins would be able to add to this, and then it would show up for everybody. The conference tab, this is where users would adjust their conference PIN numbers, right down over here on the right. They also have the option, do people come in muted or deafened, as well as are you paying entry and exit tones. When you're actually in a conference, right, these boxes will populate. Here, the plus sign, right, you can add another Dash user to the conference. You can lock it. You can mute everybody, unmute everybody, hang up the call, right, and the conference. Also, while in a conference, you can mute a specific participant or kick out a specific participant as well. And then settings and devices. This is where your users would set up their own call forwarding. They just put the +1 area code and phone number and click on save, and then they can see the status of their devices. Let's see. Yep, and you see here this updated to see my soft phone is now active. All right, so that is everything. Looks like I ran a little long, so I do apologize. But we will be back next Tuesday as well at 10 a.m. Pacific. This training is recorded, as are all the previous ones, so you can always come back here and watch this in its entirety if you need to, or just to refresh yourself, or send the link to other staff members who you want to be system admins. I thank you for your time today, and I hope you have a wonderful day.